I never wanted kids. It's not that I dislike them. I just never saw myself as the dad type. My apartment was my sanctuary. Small, quiet, and isolated on the edge of town where the streetlights thinned out and the dark between houses felt heavier. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of quiet where you can hear the hum of your fridge and the beat of your own heartbeat. I was halfway through a whiskey when I heard her. So soft, it was almost swallowed by the silence.
Daddy?
I froze mid-sip. It was from inside my apartment. My mind immediately ran through explanations. Neighbor's kid, television, someone slipping in through an open window, but my windows were locked, and the only light in the room was the dim glow from my lamp.
Daddy, come play with me.
It came from the hallway, and every hair on my arms lifted. My first thought wasn't even a ghost. It was that someone got in. I grabbed the nearest thing with weight, a heavy bookend, and stepped into the hall. The shadows there were deeper, the air colder. The wooden floor groaned under my feet. The apartment layout is simple. My bedroom at the far end, a bathroom to the left, a spare room to the right which I used as storage or old boxes, and a broken chair. The door to it was open now, but I never left it open. I stood at the threshold, my pulse pounding in my neck, and something shifted in the dark. Small, quick. I flicked the hallway light on, and she was standing there. A girl, maybe 7 years old, wearing a pale nightgown that hung limp around her knees. Her hair was matted and damp, strands sticking to her face. Her skin, it wasn't pale in the normal sense. It was drained, like milk swirling into black coffee, like something leached it away. She smiled, but it was the most evil smile I had ever seen. It was all teeth, all hunger.
Hello, Daddy.
I tried to stammer something, a question, a denial, but my throat locked. My fight or flight impulse had short-circuited into something else entirely. She took a step toward me, bare feet whispering on the wood.
I missed you.
I'm not your dad, I managed, my voice breaking. Her smile stretched wider.
Of course you are. You brought me here.
That sent a jolt down my spine. I hadn't brought anyone here. I live alone. I keep my door locked. I stepped back into the hallway. You need to leave. Her face flickered, not her expression, but her features, like a skipping film reel. For a split second, her skin looked gray-blue, her lips blackened, her hair floating in water that wasn't there. Then she was normal again, tilting her head at me.
Don't be mean, Daddy. You're all I have now.
I turned and bolted for the front door. My hand hit the knob, but it wouldn't turn. The metal was ice cold, burning my fingers. The knob rattled but didn't budge. The air behind me shifted, heavy and wet, and I knew she was close without looking.
You can't leave, Daddy. We're a family.
Something tugged my shirt and I spun around. She was inches away now, her eyes like glass marbles, reflecting the hallway light, but showing nothing inside. I shoved her, but my hand went through her, cold, like plunging into winter water. I stumbled back, gasping, my fingers numb. She giggled.
Play hide and seek with me,
she said, turning toward the spare room.
You hide first, Daddy. I'll find you.
And before I could speak, the light in the hallway flickered out and darkness swallowed me. I heard her footsteps moving away, then silence. I don't know what possessed me to obey. Maybe I thought humoring her would buy me time. I slipped into my bedroom, shut the door, and pressed my back to it. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. No signal. The air in the room grew damp with the smell of stagnant water filling my nose. My breath came out in pale clouds. Then, from under the bed, right beneath me, I heard her voice.
Hey, found you.
A hand shot out from the darkness below. small fingers wrapping around my ankle with a grip like iron. I screamed and kicked, tearing free, stumbling toward the opposite wall. The bed groaned, the mattress rising as if something was pushing up from inside it. The shape that emerged was her crawling up through the mattress, the fabric stretching around her like wet paper. She climbed onto the bed, tilting her head, watching me with those dead glass eyes.
You can't run from me, Daddy. I will always find you.
The room's walls seemed to press in, the corners darkening into shapes I didn't want to see. The air became thick, hard to breathe, like I was underwater and my chest screamed for air. She slid off the bed, feet not touching the floor, moving toward me with jerks and twitches like she was being pulled on invisible strings.
You can stay with me forever.
Everything went black. I woke on the floor hours later, with the front door was wide open. The air was warm again, and the apartment was still. I moved out that night, but now I hear her in the dark.
Come home, Daddy. I miss you.
I didn't plan on staying up that late. It was one of those nights where the air in the house feels heavy for no reason, like the walls are holding their breath. The television was the only light in the room, flickering shapes across the furniture, the sound just loud enough to drown out the silence pressing in from the rest of the house. I was half watching some old horror special, one of those late-night true terror programs, where a man with a deep voice recounts urban legends between grainy reenactments. Normally, they were laughable. But this one was different. The narrator spoke slowly, deliberately, about a man who appeared outside homes on stormless nights. No name, no motive. He'd knock on the door once. If you opened it, you'd see him. Tall, pale, smiling as if he'd been waiting for you. And then he'd be inside. No one knew how. Witnesses said he was faster than thought, as if the second you saw him, he was already behind you. The reenactment was low budget but unnervingly effective. The victim sat alone in a dim living room, just like me, when there came a knock. And then, as if on cue, there was a knock. I froze. My mind immediately went to the window behind me, but the blinds were drawn tight. My skin prickled. I told myself it had to be a coincidence, maybe a neighbor, maybe a package I'd forgotten about. Still, my chest felt tight. On the screen, the actor got up. I didn't. The program continued. The narrator described how the man would test you. If you ignored the knock, he'd find another way inside, sometimes through mirrors, sometimes through the spaces you swore were too small for anything to fit through. Another knock, this one sharper. I grabbed the remote and muted the television. The silence afterward was deafening. My ears strained for any sound, footsteps outside, wind, anything. Then I realized something was wrong. The television was still moving. The actor had stopped in the reenactment and was staring directly at the camera, and his eyes didn't blink. He was no longer in a fake living room. He was in mine. Not a set made to look like mine. Mine. The same coffee table. The same faint stain on the rug from when I spilled wine last year. I fumbled for the remote, my hands trembling, but the buttons did nothing. The screen's flicker brightened. The man on it leaned closer until his face filled the frame. The knock came again. But this time, it was from the wall directly behind the television. I got up and backed away, bumping into the couch. My phone was on the armrest. I grabbed it, but the call didn't connect. There was just static, a low hiss that seemed to sync with the faint movement on the screen. The man stepped back from the camera, and I saw the rest of him now. He was tall, his shoulders almost brushing the top of the frame. His head was tilted as if listening. From somewhere in the house, A door creaked open and the television went black. I didn't breathe. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt nailed in place. I strained to hear where the sound had come from. Hallway? Kitchen? My bedroom? A whisper slid through the darkness, not from the television, but from inside the room with me. "Don't make me come find you." I bolted, sprinting for the front door. I yanked at the deadbolt, but my fingers wouldn't work. The metal was ice cold, numbing my grip. Behind me, the whisper became a chuckle, and then another knock, this time against the back of my skull. I spun around. The living room was empty, but the television was on again. I was on the screen. The image was crystal clear. Me, standing at my own front door, wide-eyed and pale. Behind me, in the picture, a figure loomed in the hallway, a figure I couldn't see in the room itself. He leaned down, his mouth near my ear. On screen, me screamed. In the real room, something brushed my shoulder. I don't remember opening the door. I just remember stumbling outside into the night air, barefoot, sprinting toward the streetlights. My phone finally lit up with signal, but the screen wasn't showing my home screen. It was showing the live feed of my living room, empty again. And yet, the front door on the screen began to close, slowly. Someone's still in there, and it's waiting for me to come back inside. I woke up to the sound of glass shattering somewhere in the distance. At first I thought it was a car backfiring, or maybe some kid throwing a bottle down the street, but then I realized the silence outside my apartment had vanished, replaced by low, wet, gurgling noises that made my stomach twist. I lived on the 3rd floor, alone, and suddenly the isolation that used to feel like a comfort now felt like a death sentence. When I looked out the window, the streets were empty, or so I thought. Then I saw it, a man, or something that once was a man, dragging itself down the sidewalk, head tilting unnaturally to one side, jaw slack, moaning with a sound that didn't belong to any human throat. His skin was pale and mottled with bruises and cuts, and his eyes were empty, milky, staring through me, not at me. Behind him there were more, too many to count. They moved like a wave, staggering and swaying, dragging themselves toward my building with horrifying determination. Panic clawed at me. I bolted to the door and checked the lock, then triple-checked the chain. I didn't have a gun, just a kitchen knife that I wasn't sure I could even use against one of those things. The elevator was out of the question. The fire escape was the only way down, and even then, what if they got to the stairs before I could climb down? My chest hammered, and I could feel sweat soaking my shirt as the guttural noises grew louder, now right beneath my building. They were at the front door. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed a cast iron skillet. If I had to fight, I'd fight. I could hear the scratching of nails against the wood floor, then the pounding. Something was trying to get in. I swallowed a scream and whispered to myself that I could survive this. I had to. My apartment felt smaller with every passing second, and the walls felt like they were closing in, my furniture suddenly seeming like obstacles in a cage rather than comfort. The pounding turned into banging, and then I heard a voice right outside my bedroom door. It was garbled and wet, as if someone had gargled a mouthful of water and tried to speak through it.
"Home,"
it croaked. My blood ran cold. That was my neighbor. At least, it had been my neighbor. I remembered seeing him in the hallway the day before, holding a coffee cup and complaining about the weather. I couldn't stop thinking about his pale, slack face now, twisting against the doorframe, trying to push his way in. I ran to the bathroom and slammed the door behind me. The small room felt like a sanctuary and a tomb at the same time. I shoved towels under the door and grabbed every heavy object I could find. the toilet brush holder, the metal trash can, and then sat on the toilet and waited, knife trembling in my hand. Through the thin walls, I could hear them tearing apart the hallway, furniture crashing, the sickening wetness of flesh being ripped open. Every noise and every creak made me jump, imagining the door giving way, imagining them standing over me, dragging me into the hall with their teeth bared. I had barricaded myself as best I could, but the smell, oh God, the smell, slipped under the door, a stench of decay and iron and rot that made my stomach heave. I gagged again, my eyes darting toward the door, expecting it to explode any second. Then, silence. Complete and utter silence. My legs shook so badly I could barely stand, and I forced myself to inch toward the door, pressing my ear against it. No gurgling, no scratching, just the faintest wet sound, like drool. My heart refused to slow, and my mind raced through every horror movie cliché, every nightmare scenario. Should I wait it out? Should I try to escape? I had no plan, just desperation. I crept to the window and thought about calling for help, but there was no people. My phone showed nothing but that stupid no-service icon, blinking at me like some cruel joke. Outside, the street had changed. The horde was gone, or had it climbed somewhere else? I saw a flash of movement in the alley below, a shadow that moved wrong, jerky, unnatural, like it didn't belong in this world. Then I heard them outside the window. My apartment was third floor. The glass seemed thick, but the sound was deliberate, a slow rhythm, nails scraping against the sill. My breath caught, and I backed away, but then a voice called my name.
Jack.
It rasped, wet and gurgling. I ran. Anywhere, just away. The hallway was dark, shadows stretching across the floor. I heard them behind me, the same low moan, wet and hungry, and the smell of decay was everywhere now, wrapping around me like a cloak. I tripped, knife clattering across the floor, and as I scrambled for it, the first hand broke through the barricade, pale and rigid fingers curling toward me. I realized then I would never leave this apartment. They didn't just want me, they were going to get me. I sank to the floor, knife clutched in my shaking hands, and whispered to the darkness, "Come on in." Everyone leaves me alone on weekdays. My girlfriend's at her parents', my mates don't come round during the week, and the hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of the floorboards are usually comforting. Tonight was different. I could feel it the moment I walked in the door, the air heavier than usual, like the house was holding its breath. I shrugged it off. I was tired. Work had been brutal, and the darkness outside made everything seem slower, stranger. I flicked on the lights, but they didn't do their usual job of banishing shadows. The corners of the living room seemed darker than they should be, like someone had poured ink into the edges of my vision. I told myself it was just my eyes adjusting. Dinner was microwave leftovers. I sat at the table watching the steam rise, feeling the silence stretch, unbroken except for a soft tap from the kitchen. I froze. I got up slowly to check the sink or the pipes and peeked into the kitchen. Nothing, just the refrigerator humming and the shadows stretching toward the ceiling. I shook my head and laughed nervously. I should have turned on the radio, something to break the silence. I was back at the table when I heard it again, a whisper, almost beneath the hum of the fridge coming from the hallway that led to the bedrooms. My name, low, soft, almost hesitant. "Peter." I whispered back, a laugh in my throat. "Hello?" Nothing. I tried to dismiss it as stress, maybe my brain twisting a shadow into a voice, but the hairs on my neck bristled, and a cold draft brushed my arms even though all the windows were closed. The whisper came again, clearer this time, closer. "Peter." I gripped the edge of the table. I remembered that my phone was in the living room, and I crept toward it, feeling the floorboards groan under each step. The hallway seemed longer than it should be, the shadows pooling like dark water. I picked up the phone, shaking, but then I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, just outside the bedroom door, a figure, pale, taller than me, hunched slightly, impossibly still. I blinked, and it was gone. I thought my eyes were playing games and turned back toward the living room, trying to shake it off. But then, a noise again, right behind me. Breathing, slow, wet, heavy. I spun around. Nothing. My living room was empty. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, my breath loud and ragged. I considered calling the police but couldn't bring myself to speak. My throat felt raw. Then the whisper came from inside my head. "I'm here." I dropped the phone, and it hit the floor with a soft clatter, and the room seemed to stretch, the walls crawling outward, the shadows elongating into impossible angles. I backed away, but the whisper followed, soft, insistent, like it had eyes pressing into the back of my skull. I ran to the bedroom and slammed the door shut, then locked it. My breathing was deafening. I was shaking so badly I could barely stand. I pressed my back against the door, trying to calm down, but the whisper didn't stop. It was behind the walls, under the floor. It was everywhere, in the pipes, in the ceiling, in my very blood. The shadows in the room thickened, crawling up the walls like ink seeping through cracks. The closet door across from my bed creaked open slowly, a black void where my clothing should be. I wanted to run. I wanted to leave, but my legs refused. Something pressed against the door behind me, heavy and warm. I could hear it breathing, dragging its weight, whispering my name. I remember grabbing the baseball bat by the closet. My hands shook violently, and then I saw a hand, pale, unnaturally long, emerging from the closet. The rest of it stayed in darkness, but I could feel its presence in the air, pressing into my skin, filling the room with a cold, suffocating pressure. I swung the bat, hitting nothing, just air. The whisper laughed. It was mine, my voice, but distorted and broken. I bolted past the closet, past the bed, toward the window, and ripped it open. The night was empty, silent, normal, nothing but the faint glow of streetlights. I climbed out, barefoot, onto the cold concrete, my chest burned, lungs screaming. I looked back, but my house stood still, quiet, ordinary. I've been staying at a motel since then. I don't sleep well. Every quiet noise, every shadowed corner, and every distant whisper makes my skin crawl. And I know it's only a matter of time before it finds me, because it doesn't live in the house. It lives in me,